A very good evening to you and welcome to RTV News with me, Fiona Mbabazi. Now, landowners are happy that they will be issued with land deeds even if their farm plots are less than 1 hectare in size. Now, this is part of the recent amendments in the country's land laws. Sarah Shnore with the details.
Since 2013, people had not been able to buy or sell farmland less than 1 hectare in size, but that has now changed and has been welcomed, though officials in the Rwanda Land Management and Use Authority are reminding the general public that the land consolidation program in the agricultural sector is still required to be respected, even though the subdivision of farmland is now allowed. The amendments to the country's land law also include an extension to the time land is rented from the government by citizens from 20 to 99 years, and that period can then be extended without difficulties. This too has been welcomed by local residents. That decision has made me very happy because I believe it will help Rwandans in different ways, and we have welcomed it. Another obstacle that existed with a time length of just 20 years is that certain rights could have been hindered, such as giving your children their inheritance if, say, a contract were to run out or other problems were to arise. Other changes include a paperless approach to land-related services through the use of technology. The proper management of land as a way of increasing productivity is also to be emphasized, and decisions related to land being stripped from a person's possession will no longer go to court as a way of saving time. Rather, they will be made by land authorities charged with the management of deeds, including committees. Following its approval by the last cabinet meeting, the amended land law is to be examined by Parliament before being published in the National Gazette and coming into effect. 51.5% of all of Rwanda's land is allocated for agriculture, 32% is forests, 15.1% for urbanization and other forms of infrastructure development, with wetlands covering 8.5% of the country's 26,338 square kilometers.
The Chief Justice says that journalists are going to be able to access the information about what is happening in the courts via all the channels that have been provided. Now, this was stated in a press conference after the launch of the Human Rights and Judicial Reporting Training Program for journalists. The issue of access to information in courts has continued to be a challenge for many journalists, where the law requires them to first write to the court requesting for an appointment, but sometimes they are delayed in getting a response, which hinders getting information on the court decisions. Now, the Chief Justice, Dr. Nezlyayo, said that the issue had been resolved so that even the judiciary would have an interest in announcing the decisions taken in the courts.
We have asked the Supreme Court to help them get the information, because there are many times when a journalist wants to report on a decision made by a court, but you can't get a verdict. We want the decision to be made even if the decision is in the courts. But the Supreme Court's judiciary also gives the presidents of the courts the right to share information.
Now, the issue of overcrowding in prisons was also raised in the presser, where the Senate Committee on Social Affairs and Human Rights this Tuesday pointed out that the prisons are overcrowded. Here, the Chief Justice said that the proposed sanctions will be able to address this issue.
There are other forms of punishment, but also with the order of the Minister of Justice, which stipulates that when people are prosecuted, they will be dressed in brass and then prosecuted where they are. There are also alternative penalties provided for, all of which must be enforced.
Now, with Tanzania remembering the country's great leader Julius Nyerere, who helped Tanzanians achieve independence in the 1960s, Tanzanian diplomats in the country have noted that relations between the two countries have remained strong over the years, thanks in part to the lessons left behind by Mwalimu Julius Nyerere.
Tanzania's ambassador in Rwanda has gone on record to state that many of the principles applied by today's leaders in that country stem from the legacy left behind by Julius Kambarage Nyerere.
One of the ambitions which Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere had was that he loved his people. After political liberation, what follows and what he was doing is to make sure that his people are liberated economically. And this is what is currently being done by the current president. He's trying to work hard to make sure that people of Tanzania, and of course even neighbors, they are liberated economically rather than depending on aids from donors.
The Tanzanian diplomat also noted on the strong bilateral relations between his country and Rwanda, as well as the important projects the two nations have undertaken together.
The construction of standard gauge railway is one of those initiatives which have been done by Tanzania to make sure that Central Corridor can provide services to other neighbors and especially landlocked countries.
Rwanda nationals have drawn comparisons between Julius Nyerere and Rwanda's President Paul Kagame. When you look at Nyerere's policies, you can see similarities with what our own president is doing here. He loved his people and implemented many projects to improve their lives. He hated poverty, sickness and ignorance, the same things our president fights here. Look at all the developmental projects being implemented here. Jirinha, the construction of health centers and hospitals, just as they are carried out here, that is what he did during his time. He was truly patriotic and loved his country, just as our current leader loves ours. Rwanda and other countries in the region rely heavily on the Central Corridor to import and export goods from the port of Dar es Salaam, found to be much cheaper than sending them through the one at Mombasa.
Now, Rwanda's National Human Rights Commission has called for the process of establishing committees in charge of monitoring the relocation of people to make way for development projects to be sped up. Now, the Commission says 47% of all people relocated are not happy with the compensation they are given for their property.
The call was made as the National Human Rights Commission presented its 2019-2020 report to both chambers in Parliament, sparking lengthy discussions among the parliamentarians gathered, and it was observed that the problem largely stems from a lack of updating of the value of property every year as the law requires when it comes to relocating people to make way for development projects, and the fact that despite the law establishing the committees being approved back in 2015, a decree from the Prime Minister's office on their creation is yet to be issued. Another highlighted issue in the report is that of 323 inmates who have been waiting for 6 months to appear in court but are yet to do so even once. Then there is the matter of apparent food shortages in prison that were reported on social media during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. You said you carried out inspections in the prisons, yet recently, I believe the Bishop of the Byumba Diocese called on Christians to assist inmates, saying there was a problem of food shortages in the country's prisons. Officials from the Rwanda Corrections Service refuted the claims, but were you able to follow up on this? In response to this question, the chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission also refuted the claims of food shortages in prisons, calling them baseless and stressing that inspections were carried out in 12 of the country's 14 prisons, including that of Gicumbi, and found no evidence of this despite private interviews with inmates. She said their findings are included in the report that was presented. This latest report from the Commission also includes planned activities for 2020-2021.
Now, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has announced that there are some regulations governing the Fund for Economic Recovery to help those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic that has been revised. Now, this was during a press conference conducted by the Ministry this Wednesday. Innocent Mugabo with the details.
Press conference, the Minister of Trade and Industry Soraya Hakuziyaremye commented on various issues related to trade and industry, where she also pointed out the issue of rising cement prices on the market. Here she attributed this to its demand on the market due to the large number of construction activities in the country, and that it will be solved by the launch of another cement factory which will provide cement to satisfy the domestic market.
Kubera cyane cyane n'ibi bikorwa byo kubaka amashuri sima yari ikenewe mu gihugu yarazamutse cyane
Due to the current activities of constructing classrooms, the cement demand was so high. So our local cement producer, Smerkwa, would not satisfy the market, sparking for a rise in cement prices. But it is expected that as classrooms get completed by November, with Prime Cement trying to increase its production, we used to import cement of about 520,000 tons per year, but Prime Cement has the capacity to produce 600,000 tons per year, so that assures us that by next year all the issues to do with cement will be solved. Karangwa Kassie, in charge of internal trade in the ministry, relates the rise in potato prices with the recent slowdown in production. Farmers are preparing for the agricultural season starting in September. That is why you usually experience a rise in prices due to the fact that there is an increase of production on the market. It is also due to the region we are in, where agricultural seasons are also too close to each other. That is the same thing that happened with the Irish potatoes, whereby we were only getting produce from areas engaging in agricultural activities in wetlands like Burera district. As for the barriers of some traders hindered by the COVID-19 pandemic, whom the regulations governing the relief fund have been set up for but failed them, Minister Soraya says that there are some regulations that have been simplified. With the National Bank of Rwanda and the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, we made revision of some of the regulations to be eased up for businesses to access these loans. Among the revised include the threshold on the impact of COVID-19 to the businesses, which was reduced from the required 50% to 30%. There is also making it easy for companies that could not declare VAT and the informal sector get access to the fund. The Ministry of Trade and Industry points out that in the current period of COVID-19, the use of technology in business and payment has increased significantly and that there are measures to maintain it even after this pandemic for the benefit of the producers and the country as a whole. Innocent Mugabo, RTV News, Kigali.
Now, Rwanda joined other countries today in celebrating World Standards Day, which is celebrated on the 14th of October. This coincided with the unveiling of a laboratory that measures the quality of charcoal stove and other renewable energy. Now, the construction of the laboratory cost more than 500 million Rwandan francs. Raymond Murenzi, who is the Director General of the Rwanda Standards Board, says the objective is to protect people's health, to measure the quality of charcoal stove and other energy sources.
This
will help us find the right design for charcoal stoves, where a charcoal stove that has met the right standards can use less cooking energy while releasing less air. However, this should be tested in the laboratory. Another thing that will help us is to remove the doubt and suspicion, because there are many industries that bring good quality charcoal stoves from abroad, or those that are made in Rwanda, because we have up to 30 industries that produce charcoal which they say have good quality. However, this couldn't have been proved without the laboratory. We will test emissions, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and particulate matters.
Rwanda's Environment Minister Dr. Jean d'Arc Mujawamariya says 79% of the energy used in the country is firewood and charcoal, which contributes to environmental degradation.
Imiryango myinshi ikoresha ubwo buryo yaba inkwi yaba.
Many families that use these means, such as wood or charcoal, that haven't met the quality standards are putting themselves at risk. The charcoal stoves that we use have played a role in destroying the environment and deforestation as well, even before the trees are fully grown, due to the fact that they say that good charcoal comes from young trees. This is one of the reasons to why the government decided to come up with ways in which families could have food on their tables, as well as preserving the environment. I would like to also mention that soon there is going to be a factory that will be producing gas.
Now, Unity and Reconciliation Campaign group members in Huye district have said that welcoming released genocide perpetrators will help the ex-convicts and the victims to live together in harmony. Now, these activities are being done by Modest and Innocent Association, a Catholic group set up to promote reconciliation between genocide survivors and the perpetrators in partnership with Huye district. Now, Huye district officials have noted that these activities to be done in partnership with AMI will play a big role in rebuilding the Rwandan society. The genocide perpetrators that are about to complete their sentences are 67 in total. And now we bring you up to speed with the COVID-19 status in the country. Total cases 4,940 with 32 new cases that have been recorded today. Those that have recovered so far 4,398 plus 268 new recoveries recorded today. Active cases 509. Now the tests that have been conducted so far 521,137 plus 1,753 new tests that were conducted today. Number of deaths recorded 33 with 1 new death recorded today. Test positivity rate is at 1.8%, and of course condolences to the family of the 42-year-old man who passed away. Now the clusters of where the 32 new cases have been recorded include 26 from Kirehe district. This is a cluster of new cases in a refugee camp. We have 3 from Gatsibo, 2 from Rubavu, and 1 from Gichumbi district. Signed, Ministry of Health. On behalf of the entire news team that made this news possible, thank you very much for being part of us. My name is Fiona Mbabazi. Have yourselves a lovely evening and a good night.